Oh my God, it is almost evening though. This is yeah. Well, I'm on the East Coast, and so I'm on the East Coast. I'm apologizing to everyone that we're late. We had some technical issues on our end. We are starting. So I just want to say welcome, welcome, welcome to our first four-part episode to Say No to Crip Crow. And we are doing this four-part series for a couple reasons. One, we want to be able to tell the stories of people who are directly impacted by the DOJ memo, from political candidates who are running for office and this is their reason why, to people with disabilities themselves who are directly impacted by I'm just going to call it what it is, nonsense, right? And so, with that, this is I'm going to say this. Disability Community for Democracy is only endorsed two candidates. We've interviewed a bunch, and we generally don't endorse candidates, but we endorse Jasmine Thomas. She is running for U.S. Senate in Oklahoma. She's in a runoff, which is a racist, ableist practice, and so Jasmine, I'm just going to give you the opportunity to say hi to everyone. Go right ahead and take it away.
Hi, everyone. My name is Nikayla Jasmine Thomas, but I tell people that the only people that call me Nikayla are bill collectors and people who don't know me. So please call me Jasmine because that's what all my friends call me, and also my Oklahomies who are my supporters. And I am 31 years old, and I am running for the U.S. Senate seat right here in Oklahoma that was formerly held by Mark Wayne Mullen, who is now, I always say he was demoted to DHS. Mm. But I am Black, white, and Indigenous. I am Chickasaw, and I have two children. I have one who has autism level 2, so he has a pretty significant. I don't want to say profound because of the fact that he can do things himself, but he's very limited on his verbiage, and he's emerging with it. So, my three pillars, the biggest pillars are healthcare, education, and we know just recently that Oklahoma had a state question on our last June runoff, a primary. And that primary, I actually became a front runner for the Democratic nomination. But because of the fact that I only got 45.2, and not a 50%, I had to go into a runoff with the next candidate, which I had over 76,000 votes versus the 40,000. So I'm at a 21% margin. So I'm not just a runoff candidate. I am a front runner that is leading significantly. I have been doing a lot of change, a lot of work within Oklahoma, grassroots, because that's what I am. I'm solely grassroots. So every dime that I have made it from my community and the people who support me. I have not gotten any foreign money. I have not gotten any APAC money, which kind of they're the same, but also have not gotten any big corporation money. Nothing that can deter me away from the real work with the community. Community is a big part of me. I'm a nurse and I'm an active duty spouse of a husband that's been in the Army for over 12 years now. So change is inevitable, but we need something different. And that's why I decided to run. I decided because of the fact that our kids, our education system, and us being 50th in education was not sufficing. No one was doing anything about it, and I know what I can do. I've seen the results on my end of my advocacy, so I can do that for the next person, and I can do it for our children, especially mine who is autistic. So all of the advocacy that I've done for my kid that's changed his life, I can also help with other children, because anyone who knows Jasmine knows that Jasmine loves the kids. I love kids, and especially my awesome AUSOME kids. But it's not just our autistic community. It's of every variable of the disability community. So, with that being said, thank you, Naida, for having me again. I'm super excited. I'm super stoked to be here. And thank you for, and thank you for coming. I heard that you were also a veteran, so thank you for your service. I obviously I'm a little biased when it comes to my service members, and I love them. So, thank you for your service. Service.
Well,
Sorry.
thank you, and I'm glad to be here. I'm Nick Perro. For those who might not know me, Jasmine, it's really, really wonderful to meet you. Like I said before the show, I'm an Arkansas resident. I have family in Oklahoma, and so what happens there is important to me. And especially what happens around disabilities are really important to me. I'm a disabled
Mhm.
veteran. I have kids with disabilities. Uh, Everyone in my family, many people in my family have a disability. My mom is a retired school psychologist, and focused on the younger side with elementary age kids. And so this has been something that has been visible in my life forever, since I
Mhm.
can remember. And I'm glad to be able to talk with you about it, and your stances on disability rights. And I was reading through your webpage, and I know we're going to talk mostly about the Olmstead decision and the Olmstead memo and what is going on with the DOJ there. But I wanted to ask maybe a bit broader lead-in question around disability advocacy for you, because one of the things you pointed out in your webpage was about the IEPs and making
Mhm.
IEPs and disability programs for children stronger. And there's a lawsuit coming out of Texas on the Section 504 um, aspects. And I would love to get maybe your thoughts on what it would mean to strengthen disability rights and freedoms for our children in schools compared to what's going on where it feels as though we're taking those away.
Right. Okay. Yeah, absolutely. So I cannot wait until we're able to circle back on that question, unless that was a question for right now.
Yeah, if you want to start with that as
Yeah.
of right now, go for it. But if we want to circle back, totally glad to jump into other parts of the conversation first. But I think that might be a great starting point for us.
Absolutely. And that does lead into Olmstead if you think about it. I mean, it leads right into that conversation. So, yes. So, my son is 8. And we knew that my son was autistic a little early on. We knew that something was, he needs to be tested for something, whether that was ADHD or whether that was autism or because I guess when we lead into this as well, like just to kind of help you out, my son was born early. He was born at 31 weeks and 5 days. And then when he stayed in the NICU for 41 days, he had a lot of complications. He had to have like 8 blood transfusions. He had to have a lot of caffeine to keep his heart even beating. He just had a bad start, right? Just to kind of give you a glimpse. Well, then couple weeks after he had left the NICU, he ended up going back to the PICU because he was we don't know what happened. He just decided that he was going to start seizing and he wasn't going to stop seizing. So they intubated him, and then he was on intubation for over 2 weeks. They didn't think that he was going to make it. They had no idea. The doctors, they flew in a doctor from Houston because obviously we're right here in Oklahoma, and Houston has some incredible doctors, especially pediatricians. And so they flew in a pediatrician to come up here and actually run the test and see what kind of, issues it may been, because they did everything and they couldn't find not one thing wrong with him. No, just nothing. Okay. I won't go too far deep into it. Well, when they went to go do an MRI on him, and they did the CT scans, MRI, CT, whatever, just to check, his seizure levels and how he and his seizure activity within his brain, they noticed that he had basal ganglia damage. And at that time, before I became a nurse, I had no idea what was going on. So, with that being said, I had to learn a lot about that. And I hadn't noticed that when they were talking to me, the doctors and the neurologist, when we were in the hospital while he was intubated, that they would say that he was probably going to end up having cerebral palsy. So I was like, oh, I don't, like I said, before I became a nurse, I was like, I don't know much on cerebral palsy. I don't know if I'm ready for this. I need to really take a step back and actually just understand what type of situation I'm being put in right now. Right. So that leads into this, is that we knew from an early start that we were going to have so many neurologist appointments, and we were going to have to figure out what kind of developmental delay he was going to have, if he was going to have any, right? And there was nothing that was for sure, because when he came out of his I'm trying to think of the word, when they removed his intubation, he just came back like nothing happened. He just started hitting milestones, and it was just a weird concept. Well, he was crawling. He walked right after he turned 1. So when we went back to his neurologist was like, "I'm surprised that this is happening, because he had so much muscle tone, and he was able to hold himself up," because she was so sure that he was going to have cerebral palsy. So I just tried to prepare myself, mentally and physically prepare myself for that issue. Well, then as we went back for his last neurology appointment, when he turned 1, she was like, "He doesn't have cerebral palsy, he beat all odds." And we was just like, "Well, that's great, like, that's exciting." But we knew that that was coming. We just didn't realize that we were going to have an actual, intellectual ability that was going to, kind of come into play, which is autism. So when we found out he had autism at 2, I immediately went into interventions. I got ABA therapy, speech language pathology. I got the OT. I mean, everything you can think of, I went straight into it. When he turned 3, I even went to his school and even got him into a program for 3-year-olds with disabilities, so he could have that extra kick and that extra start. Whereas that was not prevalent during my time in school. I don't have autism myself, but I don't remember there ever being a head start and I'll say a head start for children with disabilities. So I thought that that was a pivotal program that should be everywhere, because it helped my son to its entirety. But then as I was going in to build these IEP and 504 plans, going into, the 3-year-old Head Start, it was a lot to deal with. It was a lot of meetings. It was a lot of paperwork. It was a lot of testing that went into it, that not only frustrated me, but it frustrated the kids as well. It frustrated my son. And so I was just like, I know that if I'm frustrated by this, he has to be frustrated by this, because his little brain, we don't know what he's thinking. He could be, i- he could be thinking like this is torture, or he could just be thinking la la la, or he could be thinking, what are they trying to, like, I can't really understand this. I don't know. We don't know what kids on the spectrum necessarily think, because it's complex, right? So with that being said, the 504 plans, they're still so important. They're so important. I don't care how much of a hindrance they are. I don't care how long it takes. They still help, and they still make sure that those teachers stay on, and IEPs, they still stay on track. But it also gives our kids autonomy, and it gives them the the uh, what they deserve. And I can't think of the word right now, and I think it's because I use it so often. And it really is. I'm trying to think of the word, and I just don't know why I can't think of it right now. But anyway, it basically gives them a head start, as they should. I think that if regular kids can have a head start and they get certain plans, oh, they okay. Let me just be super real here, because I don't want to be polished, nor do I want to keep acting like I know everything, because I don't. I just know from a parent's point of view, right? So without 504 plans and without IEP plans, love, these kids would get nothing. Absolutely nothing. So the mere fact that we have that, and we have the Department of Education set up with that, it was for a reason. We know back before the 1970s, when the Department of Education was even formed, was even established, we know that kids with disabilities on all of the spectrum, not just autism, cerebral palsy, they had, Angelman syndrome, or they had all these other disabilities. They were sitting in a classroom. Okay. And there was no teacher in there most of the time. There was kids that weren't even potty trained, that were using the bathroom on themselves, and they had no dignity. There's the word that I was looking for. Dignity earlier. This gives the dignity back to the kids. And the mere fact that someone wants to fight it, or they're having issues where they're not living up to it in Texas, it it's repugnant, and it makes us as parents feel really bad for the shit that they're causing. Like we already feel bad about being parents and bringing these kids into the world, and it's not even our fault. It's not our fault. And it never will be. How could we have known that we were going to have children with disabilities, especially when they're not even allowing us to have women's rights right now? When we can't even choose.
That part. If you, I'm gonna jump in here as somebody who was on a 504 and IEP and who had a conversation. I spoke to my mother this morning about this, and I like to give a little history lesson. Jasmine, you know where I'm going to go with this. Black folks were integrated into the classroom before people with disabilities. It took another 20 years in a Supreme Court case out of black kids in DC suing DC to have them integrated into the classroom. It's now called the IDA. It was signed into law in 1975. I was born soon after that. Anybody who's Gen X, born prior to 74, was probably not integrated at all into the classroom. I have friends who were born in 65, 66, 67, 68, 69, and 70 that were segregated in class, were segregated. Some of them were institutionalized. And so when we talk about Section 504 and the lawsuit, which they're suing over the regulations around the integration mandate, and Olmstead, which is the Supreme Court decision in 1999 that basically says that as long as the state and the patient agree that they can both leave, that they need to be placed in the least restrictive environment. And as somebody who has been on a psych unit before 1999, privatized, they used to hold us there for longer as a form of warehousing. So my question is to you, you said they will have to pry my kid out of my dead hands when the last time I interviewed you. Explain to people why you decided to run for office and how does Olmstead fuel your run? This DOJ memo around Olmstead fuel your run specifically?
Yeah, so in November of 2024, we obviously know that there was a very high stakes presidential race, right? And there was also a very proprietary document called Project 2025 that people were saying was not real. And even Trump himself had said, oh no, like I don't endorse that. I don't know nothing about that, blah, blah, blah. When he knew very, very well that the Heritage Foundation had came up with, right? And we know what the Heritage Foundation it consists of, and we know what their motives and what they want, right? So anyway, in page 900 something, and I can't remember the exact, I know that's in 900, they had a specific statement that had said that they were going to institutionalize the severely deranged and the homeless. Well, when we let people interpret what severely deranged means, that could go many ways. But we also know that psychiatric mental health issues is what people call the severely deranged, right? We're not just talking about like predators. Like they can easily put away child predators or people who hurt other people, but no, they want to put away people who are mentally deranged. So go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm raising my hand because I would be the person who they would put away. Nick would be the person that they would put away. We are not severely deranged people, but we are the people that we would be targeted. That's why I'm raising my hand because that's me. That's me. What you're talking about.
Well, and then as I went on to that night, because I was like, oh my gosh, because I was going in and I was just reading all of the articles after that. I kept thinking and kept contemplating in my head, like, this cannot be real. This cannot be real. And then I was sure that he was not going to win. And I said, I don't have to worry about Project 2025 because of the fact that we have and we have another candidate. At the end of the day, we have another candidate, and I think that she's doing her job. Well, then the end of that night, I was in tears because I knew right off bat that this was something that was going to happen because they immediately started the Project 2025 project as soon as they had gotten their results, right? So I immediately was like crying and I just stayed up crying. I did not sleep that whole night. And I said, I can't just do nothing about this. It's either I put up or I shut up. And I said, this is for the kids because you'll have to pry my kids out of my cold, dead hands. I was like, I will make sure that no one, and I mean no one, gets to institutionalize my child that's not doing anything. The craziest part about it was that all we were asking for as parents was resources, outpatient resources. We were not asking for institutions. We were asking for maybe adult daycares or daycares that help with children with special needs. Like we were asking for those kinds of resources where our kids need specially trained staff in order to be able to thrive or for us to go to work or pay us for being at home with our kids, which there are states including Oklahoma that pays the caretaker to take care of a child with a very prominent need or a person with a prominent need. So nonetheless, I decided that that was the last straw. And I mean, there's a plethora of reasons why I wanted to run, but that was the main one. I got on TikTok and I made a video. And that video just I had every cuss word in the world on there. And I mean every cuss word in the world. But I was so upset that I could not just contain any of my actions at that point. But luckily none of them were detrimental to any future campaign things. But I said, how can I get involved? How can I change this? Because advocacy is not working right now. And it's definitely not going to work with a system that's not going to be built for us. They're not going to work with us. They had already told us, like, hey, it's every man for themselves. So what do you do with that information? That's a threat at that point. And we take all threats serious. Now, don't we, Nick? And don't we, Naida?
Yes.
Yes. I'm a family member of multi generation veterans, and I'm a New Yorker. So if you
Oh, yeah,
tell
New
me
Yorkers are going to take everything as a threat no matter what.
if you
No
tell
matter
me
what.
if you tell me as a New Yorker, like basically we don't care about you, FAFO.
Yeah.
That's all I'm gonna say. FAFO. And this administration is seeing FAFO right now with the work that Disability Community for Democracy is doing in partnership with Sick of This Shit publications, with stepping on their holding them down and stepping on their neck and making phone calls every single day
Mm-hmm.
that we need to codify Olmstead. And we're not even that's the floor for us. That's the
Well,
floor.
and
That's the
and
floor.
that's it is, and I think so. This is what I tell people, Naida and Nick, is that at one point there was a lot of our community because I am Black and I'm so super proud of being Black. I mean, I'm multicultural. But the thing is that my mother is Black and Native, so I'm culturally Black. And one thing about us is that we had came out in droves to vote in. We're the 92 percenters. We came out in droves to vote for Kamala in the 2024 presidential election. So we were trying to do everything in order to we did we organized, we mobilized, we activated, got people into our living rooms to teach them about fascism and all the bad things that kind of comes along with that. And one thing about the Black community is that we're always going to amp things up just a little bit. Like we still tell the truth, but we're just like, like fascism. We'll be like, all right, well, this is going to be a fascist regime. And if someone says like, what is that? We immediately go into, do you know Hitler? Do you know who that is? And like we make it 10 times worse, but that's because some people just don't get it when you water it down. So when we all just started kind of hanging out and just leveling out after the president after the 2024 election, people were like, why are all the Black women not getting, fired up? Why are they not scared? And why are they not? I said, have you ever heard of epigenetics? And they were like, no. And I said, the thing is that we know what oppression feels like. You don't. So that's why you're afraid. You have never been oppressed. So any slight discontentment within your ecosphere is an oppression to you. And so it's an emergency. Whereas we've lived through the civil rights, we've lived through the Trail of Tears, we've lived and survived through every situation that was meant to harm us. And we know how to activate and get motivated in order to make change. It's about if you're ready to do it. And so I thought that was an important lesson that I was able to teach to my counterparts that were having just, the most roughest rest of 2024 / going into 2025 and then the 2025. Why are you guys still not freaking out? Why are the disability parents not freaking out? Why are not the people with disabilities not freaking out? It's because we are doing the work behind the scenes. We are trying to protect each other. And that's where Olmstead comes in and codifying it. It's that in my terms, so I'm a progressive. So I'm a democratic socialist. And that's how I look. I'm just not I just don't have an endorsement by the DSA or anything of that nature because of the fact that we don't really, that's a taboo word here in Oklahoma. Anywhere in the South right now. I mean, or maybe anywhere where people don't understand the difference between communism, socialism, and, Marxism, XYZ. They don't have a broad understanding for it, so it's going to be a little confusing and a little scary. So progressive has been the main word. It's been the main word. And progressivism is about everyone as a collective, taking care of every single person. It's not just about me. This is we, and what are we going to do? We're going to get resources. We're going to support 504 IDEA and the 504 IDEA and the
IEPs.
IEPs, yes. I don't know why they're just so, there's only 3 of them really, but I always say there's too many because I have a million things on my mind. But that's supporting the people who are different than us and finding alternatives for the parents that are having issues with behavioral issues or needing respite care to save their marriage. Like, it's a
exactly.
loss.
Exactly. I'm gonna say this as somebody who and you're not, Jasmine, you don't have to apologize because I think it's important for people to understand how Olmstead has changed lives. So I graduated high school a few years before the Olmstead case started when I was in high school. And by the time the Olmstead case was in the Supreme Court, I was out of high school. When there was not this mandate, I didn't have as many choices. My mom didn't have as many choices. And even though I come from a family that has education and has, my mom worked in the Department of Social Services and knew like a lot, the only thing that my mom can do, because again, there was obviously some family dynamics on top of everything else. But at the end of the day, I had psych issues, right? I had disabilities. And so it was either that, like, hey, let the state handle it, right? And put me in the system without terminating parental rights, or me not be alive. And there wasn't the options. And this was just a few years ago. I say this happened in my lifetime. And the same thing with the ADA. It happened in my lifetime. I was able to graduate high school without having to be pulled out of class for resource room because they had to legally give me accommodations without conditions.
I am as old as the ADA.
Yeah,
like the ADA was signed in what, 89 to 90, right?
1990 at the end of the month. 1990.
I was born in 1990. I am as old as the ADA is. I grew up with disability rights and freedoms and non-segregated classrooms and integrated schools in their entirety. I had other kids in my class and my age that we grew up with, and we knew they would go to special education classroom, but they'd come right back. It was a part of their day. It wasn't their whole day. And I grew up with a mom who, like I said, is a special educator. She is now a retired licensed school psychologist. She taught me from a young age that the integration for us was really important. I have ADHD. I grew up with a disability myself. I wasn't segregated because of it. And I feel very fortunate looking back on it that I didn't have to experience that. And now we're fighting that same fight again. Like, I have a kid on an IEP, I have a kid on a 504. And if those get taken away, my kids get segregated from classrooms. And it is
Yeah.
as old as I am, 36 years old is how old the ADA is, and the
Yeah.
importance of that.
Or yeah, can I piggyback off of that? Or
Yeah.
if they don't segregate you, what happened to me? Because again, I'm older than you, but like, and it's important. What they would do is like they didn't know what to do with me because I was talented and gifted in like math and science, and then in reading and in writing I struggle. I'm dyslexic and I have dysgraphia, so they shoved me in low level classes. Right, I wasn't segregated, and then they did pullouts, and my mom, right, had to literally say, and luckily I had teachers, and having the last name that I had and living in the community that I also lived in with the grandparents that I had, that also helped, that knew what my rights were and literally would advocate for me. And this, I grew up in like the hodgepodge time where they were still segregating kids in like all day special ed. But then they were kids like me where they really didn't know what to do with them. So they would have me do pullouts. I remember doing pullouts every other day. And this is why the Olmstead decision really scares me, is even if they don't completely go back to putting people in institutions and they limit, like they put people in more restrictive environments in the community. And this is a question I have for you, Jasmine, given the fact that your husband's in the military, and like right now I know your husband's in a different state, but if you were together, how concerned are you that if you were on a military base right now and your kids were in the Department of Defense's education system?
Dodia. My
Yeah,
kids are in Dodia. Actually,
they
my
are.
kids are in Dodia. Yeah, and I don't worry about anything because I can tell you, and this is where I differentiate myself, because when I say that education is important to me, I'm actually flying to Maryland because they're a Maryland-based curriculum. So their curriculum's based out of Maryland. I'm actually flying to Maryland to go meet with their superintendents, and I'm going to actually see why they're, they rank number one in the nation, or, they stay in the top 5, by the way. So I'm actually going to go meet with them and see how they do things and how they actually regulate, because my son's class, he has smaller class sizes. He still goes out into, the gen ed classes, and he still does specials, which would be like his PE, music, whatever. But he has one teacher and maybe 5, 6 paras in his class, and they have about maybe 5 kids in there. All right, so each one gets their own para, but also because of the fact that some have behavioral issues, just like my son. My son has behavioral issues. He has to take medication in order for him to be able to calm himself down, and we have to do a lot of depression, anxiety medications. But nonetheless, like, he's doing great because he has a teacher who can do one-on-one work with him. My son can read. He's going into 3rd grade, but it's 2nd grade. He was reading 4th grade level because she was able to work with him. So we have a superintendent on post. So he's an interesting man. He doesn't really talk to us except when we're kind of catching him out in the community, or and it's really hard to make an appointment with him. But nonetheless, he actually does what he's supposed to do. And also during the whole time that the 2024 election, and then thereafter, I called every single day to that superintendent and I said, hello, what are you going to do? Because I don't want to be, in the blind about what's going to happen to my child. And I stayed updated with his teacher. She texts me throughout the summer to make sure that we're staying on, her summer plan that she has written out for him, the reading guide. But that's the thing, is that that's Maryland's curriculum.
Right. It's not even Oklahoma where
you're
at. And that's why I'm asking the question, is because with this Olmstead memo, right? And I talk about this all the time. And Nick, as somebody who's a former, somebody who's a vet, you might be able to expand on this better than I can. We have a 3-tier system. So we have, like, if you are state, you get this level. If you are in DC, you get this level. If you are a territory, you get this level of funding. And then if you are in the military,
it should all be cohesive.
It should be all, yeah. And that's my question for you. Why do you have to have I don't understand why you need to have a Maryland curriculum if you live in Oklahoma. Is it because Oklahoma doesn't know what the hell they're doing,
No,
or
because the
I'm
Dodia
sorry,
schools,
I'm a little.
so no. So Dodia schools are actually, they were originally meant for overseas duty stations like Italy, Japan, or Korea, things, Germany, all the places that can actually host a family. That's what Dodia schools were supposed to be for. But then they integrated them over to America. And Fort Campbell is as far as Dodia schools go. So anything that's west of that, no. Everything that's east, so that would Bengal base. And I don't think, maybe there's like 1 or 2 that may not have it because they're smaller bases, right? Or post. But post for me, I don't know for you, Nick. What branch of the military were you in?
I was in the Army.
Perfect. So post for both of us. And so they integrated that over here. And I think that was actually, and it's only 4 kids that go to school on post. So, but the thing is, it's still technically a public school, but it's a public school for people who live on post, which makes sense because of the fact that when you dedicate your life to something, and I just want to be super transparent because I know there's a lot of stigma around the military right now and how people feel about it and things of that nature. But when you dedicate and you sign your life to something, I believe that you should be able to, have something that's kind of for you, because if your body's no longer for you, then you should be able to have the housing that you have. You should be able to get the socialist programs that you get. And I think that the socialist programs should be for everyone. But the mere fact is that when we're in a capitalist society right now, that's literally to the point where we're having to go get food out of a food bank right now. That's us. When we're at home, we have to go to a food bank to get food because the pay is not it. It's not it. And that was a very vulnerable moment. But when we have to worry about where our next food, I would hope that they would give our kids something to be proud of. When we live in low ranking school systems within states that we don't ask to be in. So sorry, go ahead.
No, I really appreciate your vulnerability and this whole discussion. So really, really thank you for talking with us. And as a parent of kids who have disabilities, and like the things that you're saying make me sad and scared, but also at the same time very hopeful that someone sees us and someone values what is going on. And we've had discussions with other courage candidates and folks on the Courage for Democracy side who see and hear and value us and our kids and
they don't
and the
live
struggle
with it like
that
we
is
do, though.
no,
I mean, I'm
they
not saying
don't, and
all of
it's
them, but these people, they don't understand the struggles that we go through. But we also don't want our kids to lose out on life. We already struggle with our neurotypical kids losing out on life because our neurodivergent kids are sensitive to certain things. Sorry, I get so emotional about this because it's like, damn if you do, damn if you don't.
Yeah, I'm glad you do. Like this is such a at-home subject for so many of us. And one of the things too we don't really talk enough about, and I got brought up this morning in my live, I do a show called Chronically Illing Out where we feature disabilities and we talk about our chronic illnesses and we make space for each other in chronic illness. And it was brought up by our guest Amelia Hall, who does a publication called Trailblazing with CP, was that when you hit a certain age, you age out of your parents' medical insurance, you age out of the protections that you get as a child. What what do you see that we could do, or what do you want to see done that can help close that gap in coverage and care that comes for all of our kids when they transition from being on their parents' side, but really for the kids with disabilities? Like, there is a gap there that when kids get out of, say, public school and go to college or a private university, there's this gap between the education and the accommodations and the equity piece of it. How do we close that? What do you see being done to close that gap?
So in a in a perfect world, Medicare for all. In a perfect world, Medicare for all. Then we wouldn't have to worry about those strict restrictions that these, because it's really the insurance companies that are putting up these red tape guards that are saying like, oh, your kid has to, they can be on here till they're 26, or they have to be in college, whatever it may be, because no one is telling them that. There's no government entity that's saying, hey, this has to be 26. At that point, they think that you're so grown, or you're an adult enough that you should be able to stand on your own 2 feet, when really, when I was 26, I had a baby. I had two babies at that time, and I was on TRICARE, but I would not have, if it weren't for socialized health care, which is TRICARE, then I wouldn't have been able to afford those children without having Sooner Care either, which Sooner Care is Medicaid. So if it was just me, and I didn't have socialized health care such as TRICARE, and I was not married into the military, you know who would be funding my kids? The taxpayers. Because insurance is expensive for three people at a workplace, especially with all the needs that a child with disabilities. So Medicare for all is 100% the goal. But until then, I believe that we need to be making sure that these insurance companies aren't getting away with murder like they have been. They cannot just keep saying, "Oh," they cannot keep making these red taped old guards saying that this is what this is, and restricting the very people that are trying to do something. And where I went with that when I said 26 is just because you're an adult, but you're not really an adult. I don't believe that when you're in your 20s, you're supposed to have a fully together, like they believe. That's why I said what I said earlier. But also back to what I was saying now is that we need to hold them accountable to being able to support every little piece of healthcare that we have, such as I even think dental and vision is a part of the whole healthcare system. So there should not be a reason that we're having to pay for three separate insurances, right? Okay. So where I'm going with this as well is that we need to hold them accountable to making sure that they take care of the whole person and not just single issues, right? Just single isolated issues, such as like, the body, and then you have your teeth, and then you have your eyes, because I could not see without my eyes being in my body. It'd be different if I could take my eyes out and put them on the table and I can still see like it was a camera, like it was Ray-Ban glasses, right? Okay, maybe we should have a different insurance for that if I can just take those out. But if my body actively fights against my eyes because I have diabetes or I have some health ailment that takes away my vision, then that should be a part of the whole person. Or if I could die from having an abscess in my tooth, and not just because there's an infection, but because I have so many nerves in my teeth that, and I'm probably just ranting on. I promise I'm gonna answer it. I
No,
just
I
have
love
to make
this.
I have
I
to make
love
the
this.
point. Yes, but I have nerves in my teeth that can give me a heart attack. Then maybe my teeth should be a part of the whole person. So where I'm headed with this, we need to hold them accountable and make sure that they are taken care, and they're making sure that they have all the information, and they cannot tell people, kind of like the Affordable Care Act, the ACA, that was making sure that, one, it was affordable, and two, that no one can be discriminated against because of their prior health issues. Like, I mean, that is just sick, and that's discrimination on so many levels. So making sure that we hold them accountable until we get Medicare for all, because we know that that's not going to be an overnight thing. We're going to have to fight for that. I have 6 years in the Senate, and in that 6 years, I'm going to make sure that we get the full advantage and we get what we need to take care of our kids. But in the time, the question you asked me as well was like, in that transitional period, what can we do? And that's for kids with disabilities, or are we talking just in general?
Specifically for kids with disabilities,
Okay.
because right now, at least for the heart of this conversation around like the Olmstead idea,
Right.
the ACA, and other pieces of this. And I have a follow-on question after also that I want to
Yeah.
ask because this is great.
So it's really depending on the severity of the intellectual, the disability of the child, of the person. So I believe that in that middle frame, because are we talking about like the insurance portion, or are we talking like just a transitional period? Like what can we do in the middle? Do you
That
get what I'm saying?
transitional
Like activities?
period. Yeah.
Okay. So we can be having additional resources. We can start funding even little outpatient, I don't want to say clinics, but outpatient like tutoring sessions that can kind of help with that, with the growth in the mind, because we know that, and it's statistically, we know that children with disabilities, or anyone with disabilities, and I say children because anyone that's younger than 30 at this point is a kid to me. But we know that people with disabilities, they're lifelong learners, just like we are. Like we go on to keep learning things. So do they, but they just need a little bit more help. So we need to be making sure that one, they can still go to school until they're 21. I think that if a child is so profound that they can still go to school until they're 21 to maintain, but I think that they should be out of the actual, and I say out because that sounds crazy, but I'll explain. They should have kind of like the class that I was telling you about with Dodia, how it's a smaller portion. They can still go into general education, but I think that we should try to expand on their horizon. So on their thinking, and see where they're at in their in their education level, because everyone is different. But I believe that we should allow them to go there, and then maybe have just like a little school, maybe a little school that they can go to that also helps out with the parents and alleviates the parents while the parents are at work. So it's kind of like a respite program right along with it. There's so many things that we can do. There's not one targeted answer to this, because we still have a lot to learn about about disabilities, and we still have a lot of research that we need to be doing to even be able to target and I don't want to say problem areas, but target their learning curves, and what their triggers are, how we can best support them at home. But the thing is that we have to have the funding, and we have to have the research. So put in that time period, we need to be funding research. I don't have a perfect answer for that, because
No, I love it.
Jasmine, you don't need to have a perfect answer.
You're so real. Like,
exactly.
Yeah.
Jasmine, can I just say something? Nick,
Yeah.
I just want to say this to you, Jasmine, as somebody who was in the foster care system because of the stress of, disabilities and other family drama growing up. And that was the only way I actually got psychiatric care until I was 21 years old. That's how I was able, like I was on my mom's insurance, but then I had Medicaid that covered that piece of things, but my mom's insurance was primary.
It didn't, yeah.
Because it didn't cover the psychiatric care that I needed outpatient wise. Specifically, I needed to see somebody who was a specialist around, eating disorders and stuff like that. And so we need the full gamut. And so my question is, we talk a lot about those who have higher access needs, but there are people like me who need access needs, who need case management, but could be in the community, who don't need to go to special schools. But they, if I had case management, I'd be working. I would be able to work full time. Do you believe in funding regardless of where you're at?
Yes,
if you can work
absolutely. Because everybody, the thing is that it's not, having a disability is not a one season of your life thing. That's for the rest of your life. So if you are having some issues with, mobility, or you're having issues with, impairment of some capacity, you should have access to be able to get a resource that you need to kind of help put that deficit, whatever it may be. And I fully believe that. Just like my son, they tell me my son, I don't know, he's 8, so right now he depends on me for everything. So I can't say, if he's going to, if he's going to live with me for the rest of my life or not. He has a lot of growing to do, right? But I'm fully prepared to do that. But I'm also fully prepared to, fight for whatever he needs for that, for that house, for that those resources to stay at home with me. Because me and my husband, we don't want to be locked in the house all the time trying to, trying to take care of him. We don't want to lose our marriage because we know that a lot of parents with disabilities, or children with disabilities, they are the highest rate of divorces. Like they have the highest rate of divorces because of the fact that it's such a strenuous situation and there's a lack of a village. And so that's what we need to be building. We need to be building villages for our families with children with disabilities, because a lot of us don't have it. And I'm just going to say for people in the military as well, because we really don't have that. We move away from our families. So when we move away from our families, what do we have? We have each other. And then we have to build coalitions within the military spouse community, and we have to find common ground. And then, but you still don't know who you can trust. Whereas if you have a great family dynamic, you can trust your family because they have been around your children for as long as you have, but you have to find people who aren't going to hurt your children, or who's not going to put, your living situation into peril. And there's just not enough resources because no one's putting in that funding for it. And we have the money. If we can fund $billion wars, baby, we can fund help for children without trying to institutionalize them. We can fund the 504 plan. We can fund the Department of Education, and we can keep DEI programs because DEI saves lives. And it always has, and it always will. But it's not always been for the disability community, and it has not always been for the Black and brown community. It's been for the white community as well, if not more. Sorry, I'm just
no, I had to pause for a second because it's hard to follow up how powerful that was. Like you bring so much emotion and just like personality and personhood to this, and it's really refreshing to continue seeing real people running for office who want to see real change and real progress. Because you mentioned it earlier, it's progress versus regression. This isn't conservative versus liberal. This isn't any of the old battle lines. Naida and I are on opposite sides of a lot of things. I'm very progressive. Naida is much more conservative in areas that but we don't disagree in fundamentals of humans have value and we deserve dignity.
Healthcare is a human right, for example.
Healthcare is a human right.
But I don't agree with Medicare for all, given the history of our country.
And so this was going to be my question, because I was actually going to bring that exact point up. Is there is a lack of trust between the government and the services that it can provide for people, because they have been so abused by the ruling parties in our nation to hurt those who have disabilities or who are a minority community, who are on the fringes in some way, who are not the in group, which tends to look kind of like me, but not me.
You're Jewish, don't you know?
I said kind of like me, but not me. Is how do you, and with me, it seems very easy to establish this right away from you, because the way you're talking is about building trust and community and growth.
Oh yeah.
How are you convincing Oklahomans, your neighbors, and those who you want to be the senator for? How are you convincing them to trust what you're saying and trust what you can bring to government to make these types of changes real?
So my thing is that I actually get out in the community and I actually build trust before I actually ever ask for votes. I don't ask for anything that I cannot provide for someone else, if that makes sense. I would not vote for me if I didn't have a plan or a push for something, right? And that's all my generation wants anyway. I mean, we're all pretty much in the same generation. I mean, you can say Gen X, Naida, but if you were born in just couple years before 1990, just a couple years, then you're still a millennial at the end of the day.
I'm closer to millennial than I am to actual like true Gen X.
Yeah.
Us Zennials are an important thing.
I'm a Zennial, technically.
And I just read something the other day, and it may have been yesterday, where it said that our generation, the millennial generation, is one that's actually historically different than any other generation in the world, due to the fact that we were able to watch the the transformation of the world pretty much. I mean, we saw the transformation of technology and how technology has pretty much, evolutionized. And then we also seen how, the internet works now. Because at one point in time, we were using a dial-up internet or, and then it went into Wi-Fi where we don't even have to hook up anything. But also, it cost an arm and a leg back then just to even have access to like AOL or MSN, things of that nature. And now it's a flat fee of this each month. All right. So we've seen so many, and it's not just technology. We've seen the world change by so many aspects. Like, I mean, we've seen the World Trade Center, and a lot of us that were capable of being cognitive. The 1995 bombing of the Murrah building in Oklahoma City. I was only a couple months old, so I say that I still lived through it, but I just don't know. I just didn't know anything about it until. Yeah, I was a couple months old, and so, but that's not that's not being ageism there. I'm just telling you,
it's the truth, right?
But we've seen just about everything. We've seen so many recessions. We've seen so many housing crises. We've seen everything that a lot of these generations growing up did not have to see. And so it's our turn to actually start taking care of our community. But we've also known how to be a community within our generation as well, because we had to be the kids that stayed at home by ourselves. We had to be like, we didn't have iPhones and iPads growing up. So what did we do? We went outside and we rode bikes. We actually talked to people. We met up at the little electric box outside, and we had to build imaginations. So with that being said, it's like we had to learn how to trust ourselves. And then when we started trusting ourselves and being more and be honest about things too, we learned really what community was. And so me kind of putting my teachings growing up into actual practice has helped me out tremendously, because not only am I asking you for a vote, but I'm also asking you to be my friend. And if I'm not going to do my friends dirty, and I don't do my friends dirty, I've had the same friends for over 30 years. Over 30 years, and I'm only 31. That should tell you a lot of things. Not just I grew up rural. It tells you that we've had our ups and downs, and we've disagreed, disconnected at times, but at the same time, we still have a common denominator, and that's to take care of each other. And that's the exact energy that I bring to the Oklahomans. So when I sit down and I talk to them, I tell them that this is more than what meets the eye. This is not the same dynamic that we're talking with George Bush or Obama versus McCain. Like, that really was, red and blue. That was a different time. Right now, this is about up versus down. This is about your child, because contrary to popular belief, having a child with a disability or you having a disability is not partisan. It's not. Anyone can have it. So when you tell them like, hey, this is how this works, like, we can disagree about certain things, but taking care of our families is not something we can disagree on. And normally we don't. When I talk to my, and I don't like to call them my Republicans, because they're pretty moderate, but they're my Oklahomies. But when I talk to my moderate Republicans, because the thing is not to change. My job is not to change the people that we can't change their mind. You're just not going to do it. There's no convincing. They've already convinced themselves that this is what this is and this is what this isn't. Like, you cannot, but what you can do is you can always lead a horse to water, and you can hope they drink out of it. And that's what I do. But I reach them with compassion. I reach them with the same level of just like the bedside manner that I utilize. I utilize bedside manners when it comes to my to my supporters, and I'm not ashamed of that. And I think that that's what's made me an even more incredible leader, is because I know how to treat people, and I know how to read a room. That's one thing that we lack. We lack actual cognitive reading. Just, oh my goodness, I can't even. We just lack the common sense. Yes.
The commonness of the common sense too.
Yes. I was gonna ask Nick and Jasmine this question, because you both, I know, Nick, you're from New England, but you've lived in Arkansas for a while now. What can we do? I live in Massachusetts. I live in one of the best states for healthcare and education.
Oh, 100%.
in the country, what can we do on our end to educate people that humanity is not up for debate? Because this is what this is with this Olmstead memo. And I'm asking the two of you because I'm not there. So, and I want to make sure that people hear this. What can we do when I'm talking to people and getting them to tell their stories that humanity is not up for debate and this is not a partisan discussion? This is a human discussion. How can I say to people, we might look differently, we might even disagree on how we're going to get there, but we value humanity. Like, and I know that's where we start, but how do you show people that? I mean, I live here, so I live in a suburban urban area, so it's a little bit different than rural. And I'm just asking that question because those are the people I'm trying to reach to get them to, and Nick also, that I'm trying to reach to get them to like say no to Crip Crow, which is the shirt I'm wearing.
Mhm.
And I'll do mine. I'll do my response here real quick. And I see your questions about the ABA in the chat, and if we can get to them, I'd love to get your thoughts, Jasmine, on the ABA and ask about that, because people have been asking a couple times. There is a cognitive dissonance between what people believe, what people think they believe, and what people actually believe. And for me, I have given up talking political to family. I talk family to family, and I talk personal to family and those around me. And I remind them about members of our own family who would be severely impacted by this. I bring it home when they talk about things like DEI or things like that. I remind them that I am DEI. I remind them that I am DEI. Nobody else. I don't have to bring it to anybody else. I'm lucky that I'm disabled in this context because I get to talk about it from a personal level and make sure people see, know, and hear that it's real. And then I can bring it out to the family level because we have family members who are severely disabled in areas who will need support for the rest of their lives and would be institutionalized if this came back. And if Olmstead was overturned and states were allowed to institutionalize wherever that institution may be, because we don't have the institutions for it anymore. We have warehouses, though, that ICE keeps buying up and other things like that. And I will never allow my family to be taken into a place like that. And if you start talking about it like that to them, I have found people respond really well because they're like, oh shit, this
Well,
is my kid, my
go ahead, I'm
nephew,
sorry.
or me. Like,
Mhm.
that's how they respond. Jasmine, go ahead.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I
No,
promise.
I was
You brought
just
up
about done anyway. You are.
you brought up a very valid point about the warehouses outside of just the where they're housing our friends, our immigrants. Is that also the AI data centers for the people who are MAHA, Make America Healthy Again? We have all these AI data centers that are these mass ones, because mind you, we've always had data centers, but they were less strenuous on our environment because we had to have data centers, right? Because we've had supercomputers, we've had Meta, we've had Facebook, Twitter, all these things. So that had to store somewhere. But the mass ones are what's causing issues. So with that being said, for our Maha people, the people who are like without the red 40 dye, any kind of poisons or toxins within our food, well, what do you think is going on with our water if you don't look at the AI, the sense of our AI? So we don't know. There's no research going back into AI. Okay, so we have a lot of, and why I say this, there's not enough research, and with it taking up all of our resources and also polluting our air, that could be another way that could be part of the pollution in our genetics that could be causing a lot of these birth defects, or even though we know genetics is, but something has to, in a nursing term, even though we know that certain conditions are genetic, they still have to, somewhere down the line, the genetic gets pretty misfigured, right? Or disfigured, right? So it has to come from somewhere. Like you don't just, but that's for science later. That's for not for bioscience right now, and we're just not there. We're talking about this, so kind of back to going. But the thing is that when you put it in perspective like that, and you tell them like, you're Make America Healthy Again. Me too. I believe that we should not be, we should have better pesticides to keep our pests, out of our water and our food. But also, you're screaming about data centers right now instead of Make America Healthy Again. But that's polluting our waters. We don't know what's going on right now. Like, you can't be Maha and be pro data centers, if that makes sense. Okay. And maybe I have now that my brain has kind of the wheel working. So pretty much what I'm saying is that there's a lack of study with everything that's going on within data centers, and they're putting them in every area that they can find in rural areas, that it's not been studied as to what the actual water production and the consumption does. So that could be causing a plethora of things. So when I give it to them in that kind of manner, and I tell them like, you're already anti, the Anola smelter system that's going on, the center that they're trying to put up, which is an aluminum factory, or, these data centers that are coming up, you don't know what's going on. Not only are you worried, you should be worried about your livestock right now, because farming and cattle ranching here is huge, is you should also be worried about your children that could also, get leukemia from certain, environmental factors. And so when you put those things into play, and then you also talk about their livelihood, because sometimes people, and this is a contrary to popular belief as well, sometimes people will care more about their livelihood than they will their family.
Yeah. We live in a super capitalistic society that has determined that capital is more important than people. And we see that a lot in how our system is built and what is going on right now. And I love that you tie that back together to like meet people where they are, not in terms of their ideals all the time, but in terms of the ideas, because the ideas of a lot of the ideas that we all talk about aren't drastically different than what other people want too.
No,
It's just
they're just worded
they're
differently.
confused. Yeah. And they're made to be confusing, or they're made to be inaccessible for people to understand.
Well, and the paranoia doesn't help as well. So like when people start, like when we start throwing out conspiracies, and then those conspiracies end up being somewhat factual. Like at one point, I thought that the files, because we heard about it for years and years and years, right? But there was nothing that was prevalent or evidence that came out of that, because they would just say like, this is like pizza. I know Pizzagate is different than what happened with the e-files, right? But nonetheless, that's the first thing that I ever heard. And then here comes after these files that people are talking about on the internet. And, I'm thinking they're wearing their little, tinfoil hats. Whole time, there's real stuff going on. Like, it was mind boggling. But the thing is that if we were more transparent, we wouldn't have to worry about whether we can trust the government or not. That's one thing that I pride myself on, is being honest and transparent and putting the people first. And I think that that's rebuilding that trust that I was talking about earlier. That's why I build the trust with the people that I'm asking to vote with me. That's why I go sit with them. That's why I go to hospitals with them. I'm not there to pander, nor am I there to even, most of the time, if I go sit with them at a doctor's office, I'm there to help advocate for them. I'm not there to make a photo op out of it, right? So with that being said, that just builds the core trust of who I'm working for and who I'm working with. And if we had more of that instead of special interests, then we wouldn't be sitting here having to draw conspiracies where we're all paranoid, right?
I'm going to say this as somebody who has said something, that I need to put my it seems like I have to put my tinfoil hat. This is the reason why I am so concerned about having government in healthcare, because of memos like this, and saying, we are going to institutionalize people, autism registries and stuff like that. And I think it's important for people to understand that we can't have a healthcare, Medicare for all. I like to call it Medicaid for all, because Medicaid actually covers things that Medicare does not. It's around like community-based services and stuff like that,
Yeah.
versus Medicare. And there's also, like the co-insurance and co-pays.
Right.
So that's why I call it Medicaid for all. This is why I'm concerned about it, but I'm also concerned that since they're making these cuts to Medicaid and Medicare and pulling money out of the system, and also having an executive order saying, it's almost a year old, came out during Disability Pride Month, that criminalizing homelessness and substance abuse disorder. This is my last question. How do we get people to see humanity? That you can be put in an institution because the federal, your state, county, and city can expand what it means to be institutionalized. You are a licensed practical nurse, so you know what institutionalization can do to people, and you know what being in the community can do. How do you explain to people that this is hello? Uh-oh.
We can still hear you. We
Yeah,
just
we can
can't
still
see
hear
you
you.
anymore. There you are.
Okay. How do we explain to people that institutionalization kills? I mean, we have the history, but how do we explain to people institutionalization will literally kill people, or it will be a slow death, like spiritually? That's my final question.
Okay. And do you want me to? I will definitely be honest with you. The thing is,
We want honesty.
yeah, is you're not. We had to teach them. We, as the Black and brown community, the marginalized community, had to teach the other side how humanity in the first place. And I like this is and listen to where I'm going with this. Is we obviously there was a group of people such as the Black, brown, the parents of disability, and the people who are disabled. That we all had to form and lobby for rights, right? We did. We had to lobby for rights. And the thing is that this country was built off of the white ideation. And I'm not here to be like this, like, I'm not here to be divisive. I'm just telling you guys
You're also
what
part white.
the real thing
You're
is.
also
Yes,
part
I
white.
am. I am. And I mean, if you think about all of the white nationalism that's going on right now, like they weaponize the Bible and Christianity against real believers, people who actually followed the teachings that weren't horrible, but then they kind of put them into this box together, right? So where I'm going with this, and I just had to give you examples of what I'm saying, is that we don't. We just keep doing what we're doing because we didn't have to convince them. They'll assimilate at some point, just like they tell us that we have to assimilate. They told us as Black people we have to assimilate. They told us as brown we have to, as natives, we have to assimilate. We have to go to boarding schools. We have to get rid of our language. We have to work within the current culture's lifestyle. They're going to have to assimilate into the real world, because what they live in, the people who don't want to actually understand, or they want to wear the rose colored glasses, they're going to do that for the rest of their lives until it's them that's meeting the resistance. Those of us that have met the resistance, we understand and we'll welcome them. As much as I want to say, no, we won't, blah, 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 because they've done so much. The thing is that it's not our job to convince them. It's our job to show us and just unify with the people who can somewhat understand us, or or people who are coming out of it. Don't be rude to the people who are, ex MAGA. Like, if they say that they're ex MAGA because they really just don't align with this anymore, don't reprimand them. They already are getting that from the internet. They're already getting that from, from the outsiders. Accept them, so then we're not pushing them back into that community, because that's the whole reason that they went into that community in the first place, is because they felt like they had nowhere to belong. They thought that their ideations, they're not their ideations, I'm sorry. They thought that their ideas or their beliefs were so isolated because they were stuck in such a small box there, that they found a community in someone. Or we have pretty much isolated them when we say things like, we make little small jokes thinking it's harmless. Then that's when they kind of go on to the other side. And so with that being said, just go ahead and just start integrating them back into our side, because there's a lot of them that's coming out of this, and they're seeing the inequities, they're seeing the issues that are going on, and they it's a pride and ego thing that happens when we just start pushing them back over to the other side. And I can't explain that even better. I mean, I can't explain that better than what I just gave. It's just like accept it, accept them, and try to drop teachings in as you can, as much as you can. Don't overwhelm some people, because some people are overwhelmed by a certain amount of information. Don't do that. What you need to do is you just need to drop a little bit of, little baller balls every now and then. I say baller balls because it's, like, I think I love did you know information. I love that, because then I'm just like, no, I didn't know that. But then I will go in and I'll go look it up, and then I'll actually see history behind wherever this did you know come from. And then now I'm in a rabbit hole. So now someone who yesterday was not a firm believer in whatever this was, but because I was able to have sites and sources from actual places that I like. CNN, people say all the time, I don't trust CNN, but this is where, the right gets their information. But if before the CNN became more right wing, like maybe 10, 12 years ago, has some good information on that, but I trust CNN, and this pops up, I'm going to be like, you know what? Maybe what I believed was not actually accurate at all. People have coming to Jesus's all the time.
Exactly. Exactly. So yeah, Jasmine, you also subscribe to Nothing About Us Without Us. When I literally said this came out of Bloomberg when I wrote my article, people took it seriously because Bloomberg is mainstream, like certain types of resources. And I agree with you. You have to have the trusted resources of the communities that access those resources. So I watch Fox, I've watched Fox News. I was a big Fox News watcher before Obama became president, and then they went full on racist, and then I was like, that's my red line. But I also watched NPR, and I was raised with like actually doing research and all of that. And I do think you're right. Like, you don't shame people. I say this all the time, and I'm going to end with this, and then I know Nick might have a couple of questions, and then we're gonna wrap up because I know you probably have to rest and go on another campaign, like travel, whatever. But I just want to say this for me personally, I really appreciate your realness, and I appreciate the fact that you are literally willing to say you cannot not only take my son, but any person with a disability and put them in an institution over my dead body. And we need more candidates like you saying, you will have to pry this person out of my dead hands. And this is why I'm just going to be very clear, Disability Community Democracy endorsed you, is because we have had people say we care about this people with disabilities, and but it's always been about money, and you have said it's been about people. And regardless of where you're at, it is about people. No matter how you want to get there, at the end of the day, it's about people. So I want to just thank you for that. Nick, do you want to ask your a couple of questions? Because I'm done.
I won't ask any other follow-up questions. I just really want to say thank you. Thank you for being real. Thank you for running for office. And I am so glad to know that you are ahead in your runoff, that you had such a great initial part of your primary. There's a lot of hope that brings. And I think Oklahoma is misrepresented in the Senate in a lot of ways. And it's just like we're misrepresented in Arkansas and in a lot of areas. And there are more of us than there are of them, because this is a class struggle. This is not a left and right struggle. This is humanity and dignity. And Jasmine, you are you're powerful, you're real. I can't wait and I would love to have you on for more interviews on my platforms too, where we can try and get even more exposure for you and discussions with you, because I think you are the type of person who is here for coalition over competition. And the idea of community is where we need to be. Um, and Jasmine actually mentioned that at the beginning around the DSA and the stigmatisms in Oklahoma, and there's very good reasons. And if you want, just go rewatch the beginning. I know you were closing out our show beforehand, so you couldn't. But Jasmine, I just wanted to say thank you so much for being real, for being vulnerable, for talking with us and sharing your fears, but your hopes and where you see this could be going in a positive way.
Oh yeah.
And the way that you framed things was always is was very forward feeling and very inclusive without thought. Like you weren't trying to like find inclusive words or words that drove home equity and drove home this idea of community. They were natural to you, which means to me that is who you are. You practice them, you believe that. And I believe you'd be an incredible senator for the state of Oklahoma.
Thank you.
You do what we call listening louder. We actually have a show.
Oh, I got a shirt for it too. You listen louder and you hear more.
And we have a show that we are doing together on Nick's platform to build the gaps within the disability community, mainly between the civilian disability community and the veteran disability community. And people like you and even people like me who are not veterans but have family in the military can do that. And this is why I wanted to have you back on. Jasmine,
and I'd love to have you. I'm going to invite you on.
I'm trying so hard not to cry because
I cried last week, Jasmine. I cried last week when I was talking to Erica. So don't worry about it.
And I'm gonna invite you on for one of our listening louder episodes too, because I would love to continue these discussions and just see you as a person, as well as a candidate, but as a person who is trying to do right. And I just want to thank you for that.
And with nothing behind me, I have no, I have no, I have no agenda. Like there's no agenda behind me because there's nothing that I need. Everything that I have, I've had to work hard for, like nothing has ever came easy to me. And me and my husband, we joke about that all the time. And we say, man, when something good happens to us, it's like a but or a and or ... that comes, behind it, where then we have to start, fighting for that good thing. Right. And so it's so true. It's so true because every little good deal that happens to me, it has to be followed up with a but, and then here goes a run. I'm winning my primary, and then here goes a runoff. I have a baby. We want a baby, but this baby has autism. I go to nursing school, finish nursing school, but it's a for-profit nursing school, so it screws you. Like it's always this but, and it's never just here's your reward for doing the right thing. And I'm not sad because it didn't come easy to me, but it's always just led me in that path of the lived experience and to be able to tell a story that resonates with the community and knowing that they've been through hard things. I've been through hard things. I didn't get to put, $50,000 into my own campaign. I even went into the negatives at one point, like when I first started the campaign, because I thought I only had like maybe $900, and I was traveling across the state at the time, and I was getting people to try to, take me serious. And then I ended up overdrafting the campaign account, but it wasn't because of me using money or, using it in taking the taxpayers' money. I was going to go meet the taxpayers with their dimes, and it's like, damn if you do, damn if you don't. That's kind of like my slogan. But that right there proves that there's no hidden agenda. There's no reason that I would be trying to go as hard as I am. I just know what I can do because I put belt to ass to everything that I've done. I've had to fight for everything in my life. And what makes you think that if I'm not going to fight for myself, I'm not going to fight for the same causes or the same way that I'm fighting, that I fight for myself for the Oklahomans? That's the point. When things are given to you, you loan yourself money, campaign wise, or you can, go out and get these things easily. That should tell you everything right there. That should tell you that there's no real interest in actually making change. It's to stay the same. And we're knocking this system down and we're restructuring it. There is no way that we're going to be like, oh, we're just going to piece this together right here. No, we tried that. And every time that we tried that, we failed miserably. And it's just time that the millennials got this together and they actually did what was right on behalf of the community and people who actually want something different that was promised the American dream. I love America. I will never, ever in my life ever say that I don't love a country, but I can love something and want better for it. That's like loving someone who's on, that has an addiction. Just because they have that addiction does not keep you from loving that person. It makes you want to distance yourself from that person until they can get the help, or keep pushing for that help. Tell them to go to rehab. But at the end of the day, it's solely up to us to help them, to decide whether we're going to help them or whether we're going to let it go and let it die out. And I chose to love it and to nurture it and to give it some type of new future. And contrary to popular belief, and shout out to my former people who had addictions that came out and came on the other side, because we can do that same thing. If you can do it, we can do it. And we're going to. And we're going to do it with the same steps that you did to get to the other side. And that's just restructuring yourself, because you're not the same person you were before your addiction, during your addiction, and now after your addiction. So we can do that same thing with the American dream, and we can actually get that American dream. And it's true. Mondami shows us every day that if they wanted to, they would. And I'm going to show you that I can and I will.
Yeah. I like that slogan better than damn if you do, damn if you don't. Is I can and I will. Because I think you have shown it today that you will and you can do this and you want to do it. And I'm excited sitting over here thinking that Oklahoma can have an incredible senator that isn't a piece of garbage. Like, you deserve so much more in Oklahoma. My family, my friends, those who live there in Oklahoma that I know, like, y'all deserve more. You deserve better, because you aren't shitty people. You're good people.
No. Yes.
You're lied to and you're manipulated, and you're good people. And I thank you. Thank you for coming out. It means a lot to see that people care and that they don't want to see their communities fall. Because you're showing what the true meaning of conservation, which is a conservative thing, is conservation, is you have to be willing to see it change too. Conservation requires growth and change. You cannot conserve something by statically keeping it in place. You have to be willing to progress forward, which is why progressives and conservatives are not opposite ends of the spectrum. We're just manipulated to believe that our views are different and that we want different things.
This is true. And the thing is that a lot of us progressive, and I just recently learned the difference between liberals and progressives, or leftists, whatever you want to call it. And liberals, they're very, how can I say this? This is just how I learned it. Okay. So there's no shade. Our liberals are the people who really do, want change, and they want certain things, but at the same time, they still have they still have their extreme tendencies. There we go. Some things are extreme that they say, whereas our leftists, we have nuance. We understand that we cannot abolish, the certain amendments. We know that we can't abolish the death penalty right now, because there's families that deserve some type of justice. And sometimes we have to feed them. Sometimes we feed them on our dime. So then when we have we have to weigh the justice scales on the leftist end of the spectrum. But also leftists, we don't mind the military. We're not saying, like, oh, they're so bad. They're doing their job. We understand that there's millennials and there's Gen Z that's in there right now that would not like to go to war, that was in there because they wanted the socialist programs that we were promised as the American dream. They're not in there to technically want to go to war. Yes, they gave their lives, but they did that. But that's the point. They had to give their lives in order to survive. Do you understand? And people don't understand that. They want to villainize the military and the members. When we see military members up here right now, even active duty, there was a man just a few days ago, that's an Air Force.
Major
What was
U.S.
he?
Air Force Major
Yes.
Jason Watson.
Yes.
Who
And
literally
he got
put
up
their
there.
body,
Yes.
put his body on the line. And as for
Put his
those
career on the line too.
career on the line, I just want to make this clear to everyone. Like if you work in law enforcement and military, you are not allowed to protest. They have
No.
you don't have the same constitutional rights that we
No,
do.
not at all.
And
Even
so
the military spouses don't either.
right.
No, because what
wear
you
my
say,
campaign gear. Yeah.
yeah, what you say impacts your husband's career or your wife's career or your significant other's career. Like you don't have rights as a service member. And this man put his or family member, and this man put his career on the line. Jasmine, you're also impacting possibly your husband's career in some way or your spouse's career in some way. If they decided that was a negative view because you ran, but you're running as a person, you're running as a human being, and you're showing that humanity is the thing that you're running on. And that's real, because humanity is not up for debate. It's not political. It's we deserve that because we exist. And I don't have any official stamps, but I'm going to stamp my approval.
We just have to. The thing is that we just have to slowly walk this whole. I don't want to say ideology, but we have to walk this slowly to people. That's like giving me some, and I know that I have a lot of analogies, but it's just because my brain is just like working really well right now. But that's just like giving me a new food. That's like giving me, I don't know, Cuban food, and I've never had Cuban food before. Instead of giving me a whole plate with all these different, foods on there and things that I've never even tried. So like goats or, or sheep or just anything. Like you have to piece it, just like with the disability community, with your autistic kids. You can't just lay tomatoes on the table and just be like, I need you to eat this. They might have sensory issues, texture, the taste, or, they might like it a certain way. You have to just slowly but surely treat this like you're treating it with a person with disability, with care and with nuance, and with also just that cognitive, that cognition that they may like this at some point, but you just got to let them try it. Let them understand it. Let them savor it. Let them get a feel for it. And then if they don't like it, they can still not like it. So that's why you present the ideas and then you let them savor it for a while. And that's just how I view things my whole life.
So are we? So no, you're cool. I just want to say this. You're saying no to Crip Crow. You're saying yes to Olmstead being codified and improving
yes.
the
yes.
ADA. 100%. I know that about you.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that you want to say to our audience? The QR code is over your head, and I am going to say this. Usually, Nick and I will say, subscribe to us, do all the things, but today we are going to say, if you can, and please donate to Jasmine's campaign, because we need her in Congress. And disability community for democracy is nonpartisan. So if Jasmine was a Republican or independent and she got down in the same way that we got down, we would endorse her too. So this is not about political party. This is about humanity. So I am saying to everyone, if you can, donate $5. I donated to her campaign. I did. And I don't even live in her state because I want her to win. I follow her even though I don't live in her state. She's on all social. She's on, I'm sorry, Jasmine, I'm going to be your biggest out-of-state cheerleader right now in the Northeast. If you're on Facebook, Threads, Instagram.
Jasmine for okay. So
Yeah,
I can do my little spiel. So
go
you
ahead.
don't have to-
I'm just so excited.
No,
Go.
you're good. No, you're good.
So I just saying, like, for me, please, like do that. And I just we're gonna let you do your spiel, but I'm saying, as somebody who follows your campaign as a human being, not just as an organization, Jasmine is the real deal. She'll actually interact with you in the comments. It's her interacting with you in the comments, not her campaign staff usually, but it's Jasmine. So
y'all be stressing me out. I be so stressed out. I just have to take the weekend off because y'all be stressing me out. I'll be like, man. But I love that though. And I think that that's why I'm so liked among the community, is because I'm accessible. Now they know that it's going to stay the same even if I win. But nonetheless, they understand that there's going to be times where it's not going to be me. So I love that. But I love right now that I can, and I have the opportunity to interact the way that I can. But I'll go ahead and give my little spiel.
Go ahead. We're going to actually wait. Before you go, we are going to take ourselves off camera so you can give your spiel, and then we're going to say goodbye. So let's go hide. Nick, turn off your camera.
We can't.
I can't. You got to hide me.
Oh God!
I was like,
on the right side of the screen, hit with the little faces. Hit the you can hide me. There we go.
Hi, again, my name is Jasmine Thomas, and I go by Jasmine, and I am the candidate, actually the front-running candidate for the U.S. Senate seat right here in Oklahoma, and I have a runoff on August 25th, 2026. So please, if you are in the Oklahoma area and you're all about disability rights, and you're all about humanity, you're all about education, healthcare, and fair wages, please, please, please click this little QR code that's in the corner and come and donate. I'm a grassroots candidate, so that means that I do not take any foreign money, nor do I take any corporate PAC money. So every little bit of funding that I get, every bit of change comes from the community. So I like to tell people that I would like your change for change. So please, if you can, just go to this QR code, please scan it, and please donate right there in my Act Blue. It goes right back to the community. And I say that with the high hopes because we put more effort into the community than we do ourselves when it comes to the funding. So please, please, please. Again, I am the front running candidate by a 21% margin. We are looking for change, please. And change starts with just a donation. So please, everyone, donate where you can. Again, U.S. Senate candidate, runoff August 25th. Beat me there. Don't meet me there. Bye.
Jasmine, thank you so much.
I forgot to tell them my website, but I seen the QR code, so I was like, maybe that's
so I'm gonna actually try to bring back Nick.
You can hear me, but not so. There we go.
We can see you now. You're good.
Yeah. So
I'm back.
Okay. So can you saying audio? We can't. Other people can't hear you. Yeah. We're gonna end. And so we're gonna end. And Jasmine, thank you so much. Jasmine, do not log off because we want to make sure that it saves the recording properly.
Okay.
Bye, everyone.